Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Samir Mansour. I'm the executive director here at MIC. And alhamdulillah, we're honored to have our esteemed guests here, Brother Malik Shah and Brother A.W. Massey, for a program titled Why Converts Are Essential for a Healthy Community. This is also a program presented by Amin, the American Muslim Intercultural Network. Brother Malik Shah has been in Memphis, alhamdulillah. He's the co-founder of Midtown Mosque, as well as Amin, works at PVS, does a lot for the community. He's also helped me as well as like a mentor, as well as helping 901, our youth organization, Memphis, kind of get started. A.W., alhamdulillah, moved back to Memphis. Him and Sister Bilqis were recently just hired by the Islamic Association of Greater Memphis as the athletic directors over there and helping serving the Greater Memphis community, alhamdulillah. And so I wanted to first have Brother Malik kind of talk about this program and why he thought it was important to bring this program here, inshallah.
We're good? All right. I'm not used to using microphones. I'm used to using my own voice. All right. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam, rasulullah. If any business people in here, if any business was losing 70% of its customers, you would say that business is in trouble. Would you not? According to Pew, we're losing 70% of the people who convert. 7 out of 10. That data is from about roughly about 3 years ago, but it's still data. That 7 out of 10 of people who come in here, who come through these doors, many of you see people come in here and take Shahada and you never see them again. And we never think about them again. We think, mashallah, takbir, everybody hugs them, but we don't think what happens to that person after that. And 7 out of 10 of those people are walking away. And I was looking at the data earlier and it said, I looked at the reasons why people came to the community. And 10% of the people came because they wanted to belong to the community, to a community. Many of us, I don't know, Brother A.W. may have a different story. We accept Islam before we go to a masjid. We've already accepted the message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam before we step foot into a masjid. Something happens between the time we step foot and a little while after that people are walking. And when I used to talk to brothers before, they used to say, it was easy to blame, like people may not be as strong as other people. And that's true. Some people aren't as strong as other people. Some people, they have conviction, they're convicted. But if any business lost 7 out of 10 customers, it would have to reevaluate what it's doing. And the whole point of tonight is it's not about blaming, it's about kind of explaining the situation. And then on a communal level, what kind of talent are we missing out on? When you look at Islam in America, some of your more influential voices, Imam Zaid Shakir, Dr. Sherman Jackson, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, Dr. Omar Farouk Abdullah, they're all converts. And that's just talking about scholarship. We're not talking about cultural creators who are converts as well. We're losing out on these people's contributions. So either with converts, either we look at them, in my opinion, we look at them like they have nothing to offer and they always need help. And some do. But we need to start looking at what kind of skill set does this person have to offer the community, to expand the community, to benefit the community, and really kind of pay attention to this. Even if you're not indigenous to America, but you're raising kids here. Last night, I was at the gym with this brother. My kids play in the league that this brother and his wife started. That means a lot to my kids. It means a lot to kids. He's a convert. You played basketball before you became Muslim. That was a skill you brought into the community. So even if you're just thinking about yourself and your own kid situation, think about what converts bring and what we're losing when 7 out of 10 of them walk away.
I guess I can share, open this first question up to AW. If you could share some of your first notable experiences after, with the Muslim community after taking the Shahada.
Assalamu alaikum. My first experiences at best were comical. And I'll share a few stories. First, I came into Islam on my own. I didn't receive dawah. I didn't know any Muslims. There's no Muslims in my family. It was something that I picked up on my own. And obviously something so new, you want to learn as much as you can before you pop up and see people who actually have knowledge of this information. Nobody wants to walk into information where they're not knowledgeable, where you feel ignorant or you feel less inferior. So I was a Google Muslim. I Googled back then. I printed out all the forms. I laid them on the ground, and I would pray as I was reading. And as I would learn one part, I would tape that one to the wall so if I get stuck, I could look again. My mom is in the background. My mom was not Muslim, so she didn't know any of this. So I'm hiding, trying to pray, but I'm also trying to learn. It was comical. It was silly. So eventually, I figured I should go to the masjid. And not knowing, like I knew Asr door, I knew when to pray, but not knowing that people prayed at the exact time, I showed up to the masjid. The masjid was completely empty. Not one person made it. Masjid Salam. So I didn't want to leave, so I just sat down. I figured somebody got to come at some point. So people came in, they walked by me, and they said, we're going to pray. So I went to pray. A couple of brothers asked me who I was, and they said, have you taken Shahada? I was like, yeah, I did it at home. No, really, on there, I did it in English. They said, no, you have to do it with witnesses. So he gave me Shahada. I fumbled through it. I'm sure I didn't say it right. I'm sure I messed up all the tajweed. It was awful, inshallah. But alhamdulillah, after that, the brother said, okay, here's a phone number. Here's a phone number. Call this guy. Me, again, I called the brother. I'm not going to say the brother's name. Great brother. The brother told me, leave Memphis. That was his actual words on the phone to me. Obviously, I wasn't in a position to leave Memphis. So I said I'd figure it out from here. But that brother put me in contact with Imam Jassy. I know a lot of people know Jassy. Jassy's an amazing guy. So alhamdulillah, I came in contact with Brother Jassy, and I learned from him. And I had a lot of experiences since then. I kept going to the masjid, and people kept saying, inshallah to me, inshallah, inshallah. I had no clue what inshallah meant. I was walking around like, why would everybody keep saying this to me? So, I mean, you just learn, and you have to go through these growths and these experiences. My most embarrassing experience is I saw everybody wearing the nice thobes. I wanted a thobe. I thought, hey, thobe is what you wear to the masjid. It looks nice. So I bought a thobe. Now, if you came from Christianity, when people dress up in the choir, they zip in the back. So when they wear the choir, anybody who knows you zip in the back. So I'm thinking, oh, this thobe is nice. Let me put it on and button it in the back. So I'm walking through the masjid. I done wore this thobe at least 5 times by this point. I'm walking through the masjid, and I got my thobe on, this button in the back. And it's the end of prayer. I done walked and shook hands with 1,000, I don't know how many people. And Email Jackson put me to the side and said, hey, brother, why your shirt on backwards? And from that day on, I was like, I'm not ever wearing a thobe again. I don't think I'm embarrassed. I don't ever want to come back to the masjid. And those experiences, if you don't have a person that has resolve or who understands what you're trying to, what you're gaining from this religion, that's easy to walk away from. You don't want to come back in a situation again where you feel ignorant or inferior. So those was a few of my very early comical situations when I converted to Islam.
I don't remember in Memphis, but I was young at that time. As far as new Muslim programs, opportunities, was there anything at all? I mean, it sounded like it was very
At that time,
rare at that time, but
yeah, at that time, no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything. Again,
there's nothing.
Imam Jesse, if he was here, he could probably tell you some of the phone calls I asked him. I asked him every time I learned something new. I was asking him a new question, like, "Is this true? Is this not true? Can you do this?" Like, so I mean, you learn and you grow, and that's just the beauty of being a convert, that you do get a chance to grow. But it's also the downfall that if you have to learn, you have to go through these experiences and be open about these experiences.
Yeah. Was that around as far as like new programs and opportunities for you, or is that the same kind of?
No. You learn. Converts have an amazing zeal. So, like you say, you really want to. Oh, I'm sorry. No, thank you. Convert, you really want to learn. So, man, and back then when I converted, internet was kind of new. I wasn't really used to using it. So you just buy books, and you're buying books and you're confusing yourself because you're reading some of anything. No, there wasn't any. I don't remember ever seeing a class strictly focused on new Muslims. You kind of learned on your own. So I mean, a lot of people come. You're already like your brother A.W. said. You took Shahada at your house. I took Shahada in my parents' basement, in my father's basement, by myself. I later figured I should take Shahada in front of some witnesses. But you already have conviction. But there was nothing focused on new Muslims that was just focused towards them. Or even if there was, a lot of times it wasn't culturally relevant to people. You know, you may have been, we're all sensory people. It smells good in here, it's cool, right? Some of these noises are familiar if you have kids. You hear kids scream. We're sensory. Things that are familiar to us is what, even how we accept religion. When you spoke of the choir, I was in the choir. I grew up in the choir. Right? I grew up wearing that long thobe, robe, you know what I mean? Like, so when you hear certain things that are familiar to you, it gives you a sense of comfort. Sometimes when people, they have good intentions, but even if they're teaching new Muslims, sometimes it doesn't come across. You know, the references don't come across.
So to kind of, off of that, and this is a question for both of you, do you see a need right now, in like present time, for these type of programs and opportunities, and what does that look like? And what would that look like for you guys?
I think first, of course, you want to have a situation where people are gaining knowledge and learning. But like Brother Malik was saying, you want a situation that's comfortable. Like, nobody wants to walk into a classroom and I was like, let's sit down, let's take notes on Islam today. Like, that's not going to make you excited about showing up. You know, you have to put it in a package where let's all come together and learn from each other. Let's grow together. Let's have a community picnic where we're actually actively inviting people or bringing food that's relevant to what people are familiar with, you know, or we're having programs that's just dedicated to men hanging out today, you know. I mean, another one of my comical experiences was I thought I wanted to learn how to, they was having a Quran program after Fajr. Sometimes I got off work early, I would go pray Fajr at the masjid. I didn't even know that was Sunnah. I was at work. Figured we'd go pray at the masjid. After the prayer, they would read Quran. I would see brothers reading Quran. Hey, maybe I should go over there and read Quran. Like, I'm thinking, why not? So I sit down, and they didn't really ask me if I knew anything. They just said, you read from here to here. Obviously, it's in Arabic. I can't read anything on this page. So the brother's like, oh, it's like you saying Fatiha. I said, it's like you saying what? He said, like you saying Fatiha. I said, I say Fatiha in English. But I said, none of your prayers count. You've never prayed. I said, I've never prayed. I've been praying for months at this point. He's like, you learn Fatiha. So they sitting here right here. He said, don't leave the masjid today till you learn Fatiha. Then they all leave. Everybody left. So I'm sitting in the masjid from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. reading the same verses over and over and over again, hoping to learn Fatiha. That's how I learned Fatiha. So you have to give people an opportunity in a comfortable situation. And alhamdulillah, as I was going to the masjid, people told me they play basketball at Pleasant View. I met Brother Bell. If anybody's familiar with Brother Bell, Brother Bell's not gonna let you go, alhamdulillah. So Brother Bell kept me around. I was around Muslims because of basketball, and that was probably what kept me closer to the masjid than anything else at the time. So, to answer your question, you have to have programs that's culturally and there for the experience, because you learn more in a conversation than you do in the classroom. If I sat down and talked to this brother right here, I learned more about him than if he stood up here on the chalkboard and told me what to do. I wouldn't learn much. So you have to create programs in that vein.
Brother Malik? The question again? Yeah, as far as like the need for these programs and opportunities, like specifically for new Muslims, and what does that look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think masjid should teach people about Farda'in, like the basics of Islam, and you should learn about the Prophet ﷺ there, and you should be able to learn how to read Quran. To me, the masjid should offer that at minimum. The social part, as a convert myself, I know how that feels. That's my responsibility. It's what I told you about. If you grew up Muslim, it's your responsibility to help your brothers and sisters who grow up Muslim. That's not a convert's responsibility. I don't know how it feels to go to school and be Muslim, to go to high school or go to middle school and high school to be Muslim. It's not my experience. I know how it feels on Friday nights to have this desire to be somewhere after you become Muslim because you're used to hanging out on Fridays. I know how that feels. So I know how important it is to have something for somebody who converts to replace their old life. Like that, when you're accustomed to doing certain things, you have to replace those things with healthier things. So, and that's not, you can't ask someone who's never had that experience to really understand that. Converts have a responsibility to other converts to take care of those, particularly social needs. If not learning, masjids have a responsibility to teach people. They're not teaching people, we have to ask, okay, what is the point here? So, convert-specific knowledge is knowledge. Now, converts have to learn, and as Allah raises you in degrees, but the social reality of playing basketball keeps you in, because it's a social thing, right? You develop relationships with people. It's familiar. You grow up doing it. It's something bowling is something familiar, right? Poetry is something familiar. Men discussing books clubs is something familiar. That's the job of other converts. That's nobody else's. We can't hand that on to somebody else. Just like second generation, like yourself, alhamdulillah, your job is to help people who come along who have the same experience as you do. Everybody has to operate in their wheelhouse. Right now, I think we're putting too much pressure on people who have no experience doing things. It's not their strength zone.
This question is it's coming off the title of this program, like why are converts essential to a healthy community? And when you sent it, I was wondering, like, what does that healthy aspect mean? And as far as like, what does a healthy community look like? What does a healthy community, how does that operate? Like, and what's that definition? If you can go further into that, and what a healthy Muslim community could be.
So being an old English teacher, I love definitions. So if you go to Webster's dictionary and look up health, it says the condition of being sound in body, mind, or spirit. The second definition is a general condition of the body. The third, a condition in which someone or something is thriving or doing well. That's healthy. We all know the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ talks about the body, that when one part of the body is not doing well, right, that we have a responsibility to make sure everybody's doing well, everybody has their needs met. In terms of community and what are we looking for, what's healthy is that a community that utilizes people's strengths. I don't ask you to be something you're not. The Prophet ﷺ didn't put people in positions where they would be unsuccessful, communally. So he says, they're planting date trees. They ask him about it. We all know, alhamdulillah, the famous hadith, he says, I don't know anything about planting date tree. When it turns out wrong, like this isn't my wheelhouse. So stay within your wheelhouse. And I think a healthy community doesn't talk to people in a paternalistic type way. I'm a convert. I've been a convert over 20 years. I've started numerous organizations, co-founded a masjid. And recently, I was in a conversation with someone who was telling me what to call myself. I mean, and you've probably heard this before too. When I say I'm a convert, somebody will say, no, you're not a convert. You reverted to Islam. I say, okay, what does it matter? Like, why do you feel the need to tell me this? I know my experience. I converted.
Yeah, it was a whole change.
Right? It's a whole change. I had to change the way I thought. I had to change the way I behaved. That's a conversion. I understand that everybody's born Muslim. I understand the hadith. That don't treat us in a paternalistic type way. Let me tell you what you are. No, that's not how that works, right? Health is when you allow people to have their dignity. That if I know I converted, don't tell me I didn't. Don't try to frame it up. And so a healthy community, in my opinion, when you're talking about like the state of health, is what I'll say my brother here is doing is giving to the community something that he's very good at. That allows him to do it with passion. That allows him to do it when he's tired. That allows him and his wife to come out carrying babies because you're passionate about it and you care about people. That's a healthy community where it doesn't ask you to do something that's not in your strength zone. And we need you to teach tajweed. Right? No, we need you to do this thing and we appreciate it. Just because it's not religious doesn't mean it's not religiously valuable. It's valuable for young people to come together and pray and to have someone who relates to where my friend Yasser Manan can go out and show everybody his basketball skills with his brothers. And they can talk about it with each other. And they can pray with each other. That's religiously valuable. That's what, to me, a healthy community does. It puts people in a position where they can contribute, not just be on the taking in. And this is what I mean about changing the narrative of converts, is that you don't see converts as people, okay, we got to take care, like with the little sisters of the poor. The Prophet ﷺ didn't treat converts like that. He made dua for one of the two Omars. Made dua for one of the two Omars. And Allah answered that dua, and look what that Omar radiallahu anhu brought to this community. We have people who can contribute to the community, but they're not going to contribute if they don't seem valuable and we're not putting them in a position to be successful. And a lot of that's on us as converts, that's on us and the community treating people with honor and dignity. Like, converts have a lot to contribute. They don't all need, some people do need zakat. It doesn't belittle them. We all come from different situations. One time I was at a place and a brother was talking to me like I did time in prison. My father would, like, prison? Like, you know what I mean? One time I was talking to a friend of mine here and we were talking and the guy rose up to us and said, man, you two look like two drug dealers. I have a master's degree in education. You know what I'm saying? Like, what you find funny, I find degrading. You know what I mean? So we have to treat each other with dignity. Like, we're not all images we see on TV, and we all have something to contribute. That's what I think healthy community is.
All right. AW, did you want to add anything to that question?
Shortly.
All right.
So I'm going to break down an example. For one, a community means that you don't have to go outside of yourself to do things. And I'll give you an example. With my family, I come from a bigger side from my maternal side of my family. My grandma had 10 kids, alhamdulillah. She's still alive, and she's still threatening to whoop us every day, alhamdulillah. So, and she was a smart lady. She only, 5th grade education. She raised 10 kids, and all of them got their education. Most of them got multiple degrees. I'm sorry, you can't hear me.
So like move it towards your mouth.
Can you hear me now? That's good, baby. Like, that's my wife, so she can tell me that. But and all of those kids had kids, and so my grandma was smart enough to know that she had this thing called the garden, and the garden was basically like 3 or 4 acres, and every year she would go out there and plant crops. She would plant. This old lady would be out there planting crops, and every year around September, from September to November, everybody after school would have to go down to grandma's house, and you had a job. I was a little guy, so I had to carry the peas from the garden to the house for somebody else to shell, or I had to carry the corn. Everybody had their job and their opportunity. And from November to maybe March, we didn't eat nothing but peas and corn. Like, my mom froze the bed, it came frozen, and that's all we ate. I hated peas, corn. Every once in a while, we got hot water cornbread, if you know what that is. Yeah, hot water cornbread is good. But as a family, nobody suffered. Nobody was struggling. Well, we didn't know we were struggling. But nobody struggled. Everybody had food on the table. Every house, every family, every group. We all knew each other. Everybody was close. When you went down, you knew your cousins, your cousins' cousins, your aunts. You had respect built in because we got to get this done. You hated every second of it. Like, your arms burning. You was hoping to get the job where you was old enough to shell peas, so you ain't at least have to carry them. But as a family, we had a community. We were built. We were strong. The garden doesn't exist anymore. Grandma's 93. So now you see I got cousins I don't know. I got family I don't know. We have people in my family that's struggling. We don't support each other the same way we support each other. Graduations, you might only see 2 people from the family instead of us taking up a whole section. Our community and our family is not as strong. So I say the same thing about the community that we are trying to build Islamically. If your community is not working with each other, if you don't have times where we actually meet and spend time with each other, if we're not growing with each other, we see these little kids that run around playing with each other. If 15 years from now they're not still out there playing with each other, then our community is not strong. Alhamdulillah, I see Samir, and I saw Samir growing up. Samir got his group of friends, they still close. They working. I see him like doing things in the masjid. I mean, this brother has came far. Safi came far with masjid. These brothers are actually doing things because they grew in a healthy environment. But how many kids did we see growing up that's not here now? How long has PVS been here and we haven't expanded into a university or a trade school or used some of these skills? We got a lot of educated brothers in this space that have skills, that are highly educated. My brother Salman just came in. Alhamdulillah, that's my brother. My brother is a genius, in IT. Why are we not valuing his skills? Why is he not in here teaching the kids this information? Because we need to make sure that we're around each other and we build a community that everybody supports each other so that we always have that garden. That's it.
To build off of that, have y'all started to see like masjids and institutions start to leverage the knowledge of converts that have been around for years now? Has it been like status quo, or have you started to seeing like a trend where masjids and institutions are starting to shift?
I think so. I think that the masjids and institutions are trying to shift. I think it's just making people comfortable to feel like that they can step into those roles, and asking that maybe you could join a board, or there's classes led by converts. In the I think those opportunities have to come, and they're gonna come. They're not gonna come fast. And again, not to blame masjids and institution, because again, we as converts have to step up and want to be involved. It's just hard sometimes when you coming into an environment. It's just walking in a room with the people you don't know and trying to make your space. It's a little challenging, but we have to find a way to make our space.
Brother Malik, did you want to add anything to that?
I agree.
This is one thing that you had mentioned at the beginning, if you wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about it. We hear a lot about how Islam is the most, the fastest growing religion. Can you share your thoughts on this one statement from Pew Research that you mentioned? Religious conversions haven't had a large impact on the size of the U.S. Muslim population, largely because the amount of many Americans converting to Islam have also left the faith.
I mean, we've all known people who've left. I don't think people leave Tawheed. I think they leave, community. Like, they just leave the community. But Tawheed, once you accept Tawheed, I don't think you go back to, some people will go back to church surely because of the social comfort of church. Church is very socially comfortable. It's very familiar. But again, any business that loses 70% of its customers, you would begin to question, you'd begin to ask some questions. What's the marketing like, right? So obviously marketing is good, but you'd say, what's the customer retention? What's the problem with customer retention? So we're losing people, and I think we have to, what Brother A.W. talks about, I grew up the same way. I grew up picking peas, shucking black-eyed peas. My parents were part of the Great Migration North, so they had the same experiences as what he's describing in the South, and they took that north, and I grew up doing the same thing. My thumbs used to be, my skin was all off my fingers from shucking peas. But those things you did together created stickiness, and what we need is stickiness, and I think a lot of that now comes from converts. Converts now are starting institutions, and that's our responsibility. But the society is not as stable as it used to be. I come from a community. He comes from a community of people that it was stable. You look out here now, man, this thing is not stable at all. So people who are coming into Islam now, their lives aren't as structured as people before. So many of us came from the church. I came from church. I grew up singing in the choir. I was shocked when I first went to a Massey because when I grew up in the church, I literally thought God lived in the sanctuary. It was that holy. Like when you were in the sanctuary, all that dozing off, all that talking too much, you slapped in your head. Right? So that was structure though. I grew up going to Sunday school. With structure. Now, people aren't coming from religious structure. So there's going to be some in and out and dibbling and dabbling. Because now you can dibble and dabble in something of anything. But we have to look at what creates stickiness. What creates stickiness is relationships, meaningful experiences with people. And at the core of this, people have to feel like you actually care about them. We were at the retreat last week with some young men, and the one theme I said the only thing I want you to remember is that the Prophet ﷺ, when he looked at people, he squared his body to them and he looked them in the face. If you've ever had someone talk to you like that, you knew that person cared about what you were saying, and that creates stickiness. Because there's nothing like knowing somebody actually cares about you. They care about what you're saying. And in this environment where people feel as if nobody cares about them, that 70% can get cut down if we actually just show that we care about people. That when they come, we remember their name. When they come, we ask about, how are your parents doing? How you doing? Anything, you need to talk about anything. That creates stickiness. The Prophet ﷺ was known to look at people. And the Sahabas felt like he cares about me more than he cares about anybody else, right? Is that how people feel when they come through these doors? I know you're here, so I know that's the goal, right? So I think we can cut. I think we need to work on cutting this 70% down, and it should be intentional. And it's going to take all hands on deck to get that 70% down, because I don't know any business that can stay open, honestly, losing 70% of its customers.
AW?
I think to speak to the idea of that we're losing Muslims as fast as we bring them in, I like to think about two things. Again, like my brother Malik said, it's how people talk to you and how you respond to you. Two people we all look up, we know we look up to is the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and brother Malcolm X. And the two things that you always hear in common about those two brothers when you listen to people talk about them is when they talk to you, how they would smile at you. How their smile at you would just make you feel like, like it radiated the sun. They said nobody's smile was more beautiful than the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. The second thing that's common about those two brothers is that they were always in the field working. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, didn't stand back and say, build a trench. He was out there building the trench with them. He was breaking off half a day to feed people. Brother Malcolm, when you used to see him, he was in the streets. People would see them. When the fastest time that people converted to Islam was during that time, because you would see the Muslims in the community being active, being visible, working. The other time that we had the biggest spread in conversion was during the time of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, because the Muslims were doing things in the community. They were working. You saw them. And so I always say, like, when you think about charity, charity is part of our deen. That's our deen. Like, that's us. We have charity written that every Muslim in here gives charity. But when you think about the most charitable organizations in the world, name one that you can think about that's Muslim. When you think about when you go around here to donate clothes or you look in the community or beautify the city, where do you see Muslims? Where do you see us? So a lot of times we're talking and you've got people that are converting and then they say, oh, you say it, but I don't see you in my neighborhood. I don't see you where my kids go to school. When I first converted, I'm going to add another comical one. I first converted, my mom was a teacher at Fraser High School. I don't know if anybody know where Fraser High School is, but it wasn't the best school. It's not Fraser anymore, it's MLK now. And I'm still new, I don't know much. But my mom says there's a teacher there, and she's teaching about religion. And back then, the books in Memphis had one paragraph on a little chart on Islam. Had a whole paragraph, a whole chapter on Christianity and Islam. It was a little bit chart. It was like Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and something else. And they had like 4 things that this is what they believe. And they said the teacher wants you to come and speak to the class about Islam. Fraser High School. They want me to walk in and teach a whole bunch of kids for the whole day about Islam who don't know nothing about Islam. So I walk in. I don't know who prepped them, but I got to answer questions the whole time. And I'm thinking in my head, like, okay, who can I call that can come with me? Who do I trust in the masjid who can talk to these kids the way I can talk to these kids but actually teach them Islam? So, again, and I say that to say, like, we should have these situations, we should have these people that we can call. Even when some of my family will say, I want to come to the masjid with you, I got to think which masjid I want them to come to, because I don't want them to get a bad experience. Think about that. Like, I don't want them to come because I don't want them to get an experience that's going to make them dislike Islam before they even get to learn about it. Like, last one, I'm done. Like this. But I went to Zuma early again, Muslim. And I went in my basketball shorts. And back then, I was Fab 5 fan, so my basketball shorts already hanging low. Not to my ankles, though, but down the basketball. So I'm in there, and I'm sitting there, and I pray Juma, and I'm just sitting in the masjid, because I'm like, I'm not going nowhere. And it's an older brother sitting in a chair, and he's yelling at me in Arabic. Yelling at me. Talking, I don't know what he's yelling at me. And I'm looking, I don't understand a word he's saying, but I'm looking like I know that he's angry about something. And as the brother beside me said, don't worry about it. He's talking about your shorts. Like, my shorts? What about them? What about them? Because I don't know, because I still just converted, that I'm not supposed to be in here in shorts. But for a new Muslim, you see how that turns somebody away? Because you didn't get somebody who had the tact or the adab or the etiquette to come to you and say, oh, brother, next time, or brother, they have something to cover your legs. We don't want to pray in those and explain it. So those are the things like. So I'm saying that if you want this religion to grow, we have to be like those our two idols. We have to smile at our brothers when we meet them, and our sisters. We have to smile in a tactful way. We have to smile, and we have to be in the community. We have to do things in the community so people know Muslims exist here.
Are there, so you kind of talked about as far as like the community and just, people coming to the masjid and stuff like that. Are there any other factors that go into converts leaving Islam that could be expounded upon?
You got it.
I mean, I think in the past, the church was a lot stronger. And the pull, at least particularly for sisters, because church has a lot of social programs where you feel like you're a part of something. I think that's one thing why people kind of bounce out. It's kind of like what he's saying, what Brother A.W. is saying. If you're not doing something, the world is full of diverse people. You have introverts, you have extroverts, you have single people, you have married people. But people need to be doing really need to be doing something in community with other people. And that's something, I mean, particularly coming out of COVID, we really need to pay attention to. I was speaking with an attorney the other day. We were just bumped into each other at the bookstore, and he was telling me how churches are really struggling after they went online. He said, man, people just didn't come back. A lot of people just never went back. They just got comfortable at home, or they're still a little nervous about going. So the social part of life is very important. Robert Putnam wrote a book called Bowling Alone. This was years ago, and the book was about how America's becoming less social. And for some people, the only social engagement they have with other people is through religion. At work, you go to work, you do your deal, you don't socialize with these people. It's your social life is with people who you have the same values with. So we have to be really keen on providing like social things. Now, this is a family life center, so you have enough space to be able to do some of those things without engaging with the prayer space. Other places don't have that capability where it's not intruding on religious activity. But it's something I think we really need to pay attention to is the social part of life. As I would contend to say, our biggest challenge on a communal level is engaging with the culture out there. And nobody can constantly be doing this. You can't keep fighting against the culture. Nobody. You can't do that. You can't always be on defense. At some point, you have to be on offense. And offense is created when you're doing socially engaging things with each other that are meaningful. Some of that may be volunteering. Some of that is just community conversation. Some of that is like watching documentaries and talking about it. But communal activities are very important. And I think a lot of the losing people thing, it will be to that. I remember I was at a masjid here, and a young brother who was about 20, he had just got out. And he was telling me how the brothers in the masjid wanted him to get out because he had been sitting around too much. So I said, man, I'll take you home. So we're driving to Fraser. I wasn't really familiar with Fraser. And as I'm driving, he's telling me, he says, man, they don't understand, man. I go home, my brother just got out, they over here drinking, they smoking. That's why I'm sitting in the masjid. I don't want to be around that. That's what we're dealing with. The country's not as stable as it used to be, which means there's going to be a lot of pressure on religious communities and religious institutions to fill the gap for people, right? And That means we need other organizations to do some of that filling in the gap, because a Massey can't be Walmart. You know, it has to specialize in certain things. We need family life centers to be able to take some of that burden. But we need other organizations. You have 901s here for young people. I think we need to spread it out like peanut butter. Or we may continue to lose people. But as long as we know about the 70% thing, then you need institutions that address that as well. And that's one of the goals of is to address that, just that, right? We need meaningful, specific organizations, not organizations that try to answer every call. Meaningful, specific. 901, its focus was young people between a certain age, that not a dude who's 60, a guy who's 40. It's not for me. We need meaningful, specific things. That I think that helps. It makes people feel like this was created for me. And if this is created for me, thus I can contribute to this. And that creates stickiness, I believe.
That kind of answered the next question, but most of the time in the masjid, we see people come and take their shahada. Everybody comes up to them, takes their number. But then pretty much majority of the community, I don't know how many people actually follow up with them. Who knows what happens in their lives afterwards, but like that isolation that occurs, how do we as a community, like practical ways that you could advise, like how does the community help reduce that isolation, as somebody becomes a part of the community? So, AW, I'll give you that one.
He told his story earlier.
So I think, me and Brother Malik talked about this before. Both of us are school teachers. So when you become a school teacher, you get this book that says first day of school, first day as a teacher. And they teach you all these thousands of icebreakers and all these different things you can do to classroom rules and how to create your classroom. Then after the first day, you got to come back. After the first week, you got to
come back tomorrow.
And the icebreakers are done, the classroom rules are set, but what do you do as a second day as a teacher? And I think it's kind of the same way when you become Muslim. Your first day as a Muslim is great. Your heart's all pumped. You're full of iman. And then you wake up the next day and you go back to work and you're around your family. And so what do you do the second day as a Muslim? Like, what is that rule? Like, how does your life, how do you go to people who've been knowing you for 20, 30, 18 years and tell them, I'm a different person Tuesday than I was Monday? And expect them to understand it. But then you show up into a masjid and people tell you, well, if your family's celebrating Thanksgiving, don't go over there. So where do I go? What do I do? So what's my second day? So I think that to eliminate that isolation, you have to create, like my brother said, meaningful bonds with people. I have to be able to walk in and see familiar faces. I have to know that somebody in here is my real family, not just, you're my brother, but you're my actual family, that if you don't see me for 2 days, you're going to call and check on me. You're going to text me. You're going to reach out at some point, that these are my actual family, because I can't go back to what I was doing, But I also have to be confident, because we know in the Quran that we say that if you miss prayers, you just restart your prayers, right? You don't just give up and say, I went too far. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never forgive me and I'm done. It's not how it works, right? We know that Allah gives forgiveness. So we have to also approach new Muslims in that same manner, to say that you're going to have times where you mess up. You're going to do things that's going to happen that you don't know. And we have to educate them and put them in a position to grow in this religion, because they're growing. They got 25 or 20 or 30 years of baggage that they're trying to get rid of. Like my brother said, he don't want to go back. Their brother didn't want to go back home because he knew what happens when he went back home. So you have to understand that when you see this brother and you see him, this brother fell off, or this brother's doing this, how do we pull him back? Because we said we got 7 out of 10 people leaving, but how many of those 7 out of 10 have we reached out to bring them back? Or we just say, they're gone, we got new ones coming. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess like we have to find ways to just create meaningful bonds. And Bismillah.
So we have about 25 minutes. I want to open up the floor for questions from the crowd here too. But I wanted to give both of you any like final remarks or comments that you would like to make.
I think before you can solve problems, you have to first like know about the problem. So now we know. I mean, we figure we have a problem. We have 70% of people walking. Okay, now we all know about the problem, and now we have to say, okay, who is best suited to solve that problem, and then how do we support them in doing that? I think the community did a good job with 901 in the saying, okay, you guys are best suited at solving this problem of young people, right? Because you grew up Muslim, you stayed in the community. And now I would like to commend MIC for hiring you, because you were born and bred here. Same thing with solving a communal problem is looking at, okay, what's the problem? Who is best suited to solve the problem? And then putting that responsibility on them and then supporting them. We have a problem with it's not a problem. We want young people, young Muslims love basketball. So how do you get them to play basketball while still being mindful of their salat? All right, AW. Solve the problem. Right now, I think we're just putting, we got to put people in the best position to be successful. People who have a skill set, who can solve the problem. I think Allah is Rahim. He's still Allah, right? People are still, that miracle of people leaving disbelief, coming to belief, is still happening every day. So Allah's still performing miracles. We just have to really want to solve the problems of losing people. And the people who, and not, to me, this is a convert issue. As a convert, this is our issue. I don't think we should be blaming anybody else. We know how it feels to take Shahada. We know how lonely it can be. We know the struggles you have. That's on us. And we have to create organizations that are meaningful specifics that target that. Try to do everything, just target that. It's like you created one that targets young people. We have organizations targeting converts. That's that. And then on a communal level, we support each other in doing good. So if organizations are doing good, we support them, who are best suited to do things. That's it. You come to Midtown, I'm not the guy, you want to memorize Quran, you got Sheikh Hamza, we got Ustad Ashir, like you don't come talk to me, right? I know my wheelhouse, and I respect other people's wheelhouses. When we respect other people's wheelhouses, then we can solve problems. And these problems aren't insurmountable, I think. Allah is still Allah. We're here, 1,400 years later. Man who was sitting in a cave, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why we're here. So we can solve this problem with Allah's help if we really want to. And we need to. No business lose 70%. Brother Ali's there. If FedEx loses 70% of its product, it's going to be called UPS. Right?
There's no UPS employees here. AW?
What's your last remarks?
Any final comments, remarks that you would like to end with?
Again, like Brother Malik Shaw said, I think we don't want to stand here and say this is the masjid's problem or this is the community's problem. This is something that we all can work together and solve and be beneficial to each other. One thing that I think is really important is when we talk about 901 Ummah, or any of these other organizations that's building to support the community, we need to learn how to build with each other. We need to make sure as we grow that we're still building with each other. We don't need to have 8 different Ameens in Memphis. We need to have a central idea that we're going to build this group. If Samir's building the young group, then those young people, when they become leaders, they become the leaders of this group, and we move people through so that we always have that community. The same way when I talked about the garden, we move from dragging you, carrying the things to the yard, to the house, to you picking, to you bagging, to you shelling. Like, you had your role, and if we all identify our roles and we carry ourselves and move accordingly, then the community will benefit from it, inshallah.
Inshallah. I want to open it up for questions. If you have a question, raise your hand. Yes, sir, can I use you to give the mic to anybody that may have questions?
Yeah, he in shape.
Yeah, here, we'll start with the sisters first. I think AW has a question.
Don't start, KC.
Kick it off, huh?
Yeah, come on. I'm going to pass this question right to you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It was very informative, mashallah. That is my husband. My name is not AW. But no, honestly, we can sit and talk about these issues hours, days. What can we do as Muslims in this community tomorrow to start making this change?
You want me to start? You want me? Okay. Well, one, college football season started, so we could all get together and watch college football. But inshallah, I think tomorrow the first thing is we need to set up some type of community activity to be in public, whether it's feeding the homeless, whether it's cleaning up an area, so that people can come and see each other working together, and then you let people communicate with each other. When people are communicating, when they're active, when people do something volunteer, they get a spirit about them, like, oh, I want to do something else, I want to do something else. Then you're communicating with somebody who's like-minded, with you, and you get those like-minded ideas. When I didn't know Brother Malik Shaw, he saw me reading a book, and he said, brother, you want to do a book club? Yeah, why not? You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't know this brother's name, but we meeting at, what was it, Panera Bread for a book club. And I've been knowing this man for, 15 years since then? So, like, you build together, but you got to put people in positions to build together in a position where they're comfortable. If you say tomorrow, oh, we're going to have Tajweed class, you're not going to get converts to come because I'm already feeling like I'm inferior. I don't know anything. I'm scared to walk in the classroom because I don't want to be embarrassed. It's just like that bad student you had in the back of the class that acting up because he don't want to get called on. You have to do some type of event that people are comfortable to come to, and then let like-minded people build, and let the masjid and the organization support those ideas and those activities. That's my answer. You want that?
Who else had a question?
Assalamu alaikum. I want to share my little experience. I had worked in Saudi Arabia, and at that time Gulf War also occurred, and I had seen a lot of American soldiers in full uniform converting to Islam, you know, and most of them converted just by reading Quran, you know. I remember a person told us, he was addressing a big meeting, that he bought something from a shop, and then a Saudi gave him Quran, brother, take it as a gift, you know. And he gave a whole lecture in our hospital, and at the end he was crying almost. His tears were coming in his beard. He said, had you given this book 2 years ago, my wife would have died Muslim, you know. And I saw one bus full of Americans, black, white, men, women, all kind of things, and they were going to perform Umrah, you know. We were at that time in Al-Khobar. There were a lot of people, apart from these Americans, also there were like Filipinos, and those they usually did Shahada, but they had a house specifically for the converts, you know, and they had a whole system. I am a doctor, medical doctor. They invited me also to give a lecture on genetics, you know, to these converts. And one of my friends was a cardiologist, so he was asked to give a lecture on heart disease. So, I mean, they were scaring, somebody was teaching them how to make ablution and those. It was so well structured, you know. Here, what I see, because that is also with the church, we have become more materialistic, you know. I was here in America 40 years back, then I went back to Pakistan, and came back, I saw degeneration in America, in Muslim community. We have become very materialistic. We have left Quran. You know, if you ask people what you are reading, apart from our Arab brothers, they may not know what they are reading or what they are listening and what is the meaning of those. So, you know, because we have left Quran. And only Quran can bring back, because this is a living miracle. And Laylatul Qadri khairu min alfi shahr. Travel with Quran in one night, it will take the journey of 1 month, 1,000 months, you know. So without Quran, you know, people are wasting hours and hours, days in watching cricket matches. They are wasting hours and hours in watching silly movies. They are watching they are spending hours in shopping mall, etc., etc., etc. Mu'min does not have a free time, you know. And in Surah Mu'minun, Allah has described who is the mu'min, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. And one, maybe second or third condition of the mu'min is humul laghwi anil muridun. They avoid foolish things, I mean, non-productive things or useless things. But here our community is after money. If you are making money, you will do this. Prophet ﷺ has asked not to do that. He said, don't hang with the tail of the cow. You know, don't spend too much time in making money. Just do enough work, and then the rest of the time you should be spending on the Islamic work. So that is one of, I think we have to bring back Ummah to Quran, teach them Quranic Arabic, you know what they are, because the Salah is 5 times a day. If you know the meaning of Salah, the Quran recited, you will get a new lesson every time, and your iman will be charged. So, and the last thing I will say, for example, in this big mosque, there is no suggestion box. See how poorly we are organized. Every organization has a suggestion box because people have wonderful ideas, and this should be shared. See, in some small mosques, it is regularly open and read, and you know, if the suggestion is good one, it is adopted. So there should be, and we should focus, as brother said, on the problems of Muslim. What is the problem? We should enumerate. For example, how they will find their spouses when they grow up, you know, and what will be the education, and can they do without taking a loan on interest, and those kind of things. How they will do the job. How we can make them better person in terms of professional skill, you know, so they don't have to depend on other people, etc., etc. So we have to focus, and we have to make groups to solve each problem, you know. Unless we do, it's not going to work. Of course, we have to do. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
No. You're right. I would agree with you 1,000%. And to answer, does anybody else have a question? The sister in the back.
Hey, Ma.
MashaAllah. So this was you, brother.
No, she want to ask you a question.
No.
I know how to say Walaikum Salam, but I don't know how to.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay. Walaikum Salam.
Alhamdulillah.
My daughter-in-law and my son has been teaching me, and other people, because I get to travel. One thing that I enjoy about traveling and being in the midst of the Islamic community is the teaching and the reaching out, and not being so prejudiced and saying and crucifying other religions. You know, you don't try to force your ideas on people. What I would like to see, not only I noticed from traveling to different masjids,
Yes, ma'am.
that it's the community that I was expecting is not there. You know, where everybody get together. And where I don't see it. You
Yeah.
know, the competing and discussing and teaching. It's a difference. I was a prestigious teacher for Shepherd County Schools, and they asked me how did I do it. One thing, I smile a lot. I visit homes. I try to help wherever. When you reach back and you extend your hand to help, that make a big difference. I don't see a lot in the people in the Christians, for the churches I belong. They're actually afraid of Muslim people.
Yeah.
You know, they say things because they don't understand. They say, you don't believe in Jesus, you don't believe in this, you don't believe in that. But yet and still, if we go out and reach and teach, not to try to convert, but to come together with also and teach the young ladies. Many of the people in the churches I attend, they don't have fathers in the churches. My son does no longer have a father because my husband died in December. But the young men don't know, and the young ladies don't know how to clean themselves or to be clean. We have to teach even the basic things, even so much as caring for yourself and caring for your body. I have this question for my son. Since you're the only Muslim in the family, on my mother's side, just my side alone, there are over 101 children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, all of them.
Huge.
So we are a huge group, and he's the only one. So how do you maneuver in a family this large? And I noticed some of your first cousins are asking you for advice. So how are you dealing with being the only one in the family?
Thank you, Mama.
You're welcome, son.
Alhamdulillah. I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly blessed me in a lot of ways. First, I had excellent examples as parents. Alhamdulillah, my dad, again, like my mom said, recently passed away, but the examples that they showed me stuck for a long time. Even little examples. I remember my dad was a police officer here, and he was cheap. He loved to be cheap. He didn't want to spend no money on anything, alhamdulillah. And so he would always try to get work done really cheaply. Like, he knew all his friends, and he would always bring them around, and they would do all our work. We call them shade tree mechanics, basically. Nothing like that. Alhamdulillah. But I thought he was doing it to save money. Now that I'm older and stuff a lot, I really didn't think until he passed away. I realized that he was doing it because he knew that his friends were either strung out or on drugs or drinking, and he just wanted them to have a couple of dollars in their pocket so they wouldn't starve. So he was bringing these guys around all the time to do work, and they was doing terrible work. I mean, a couple of them could do the job, but most of them, you was going to have to get it done after. But he just was reaching back to help his friends, and he kept them around. And he also showed us what you do, how you look out for family, how you look out for people that's around you, but you also don't have to do what they're doing. So alhamdulillah, I had those examples. Alhamdulillah, again, I married an amazing wife who's super motivating and pushy, and she makes me get out of my comfort zone. Anybody who knows me know I wouldn't stand up here and speak in front of a crowd. But she was like, you said you was going to do it, you're doing it, and don't ask me no question, you better not be nervous. So alhamdulillah. So I have those, yeah, and don't embarrass the family. Well, so I have those examples, and we also have the example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, where he prayed, and he sat there and prayed, and people put stones on his back. They dropped sheep entrails on his back. The woman talked bad about him while he was carrying her groceries. He showed us that you carry yourself in a proper manner. You carry yourself in a certain degree, and people will want to be like that. They will follow that light. They will find that north. So you don't turn and say, oh, I'm better than you. Or you don't look down on people. Or you don't get upset when people attack you. You be who you are, and you raise yourself to the degree of a Muslim at all times. And we know, all of us in here know, in Islam, we're taught every way on how to communicate. We're taught examples from our hadith, from our sunnahs, from the Quran on how we carry ourselves. And inshallah, I hope to do the best job I can within my family and within the community.
Miss Massey, can I tell you something? You did a good job. You did a good job. And I would like to tell you, I benefit from the job you did. Because I love this man, right? And this is partly what I'm saying about changing how we view converts. Converts don't come from like just nothing. They come from people, varying degrees of people. People who invested in teaching a child to be frugal, to give people the dignity that they're working and I'm going to pay you, which are religious principles. Treating people with dignity and honor. Now, I want to thank you because I benefit from the job you and your husband did. And this community benefits. And that's partly what I'm saying about converts, that we have to start seeing people have something to offer. And as a community, if we're not going to maximize everybody's talent, we're losing. And Allah's bringing us what we need, and if we have to value it in order to use it. Because He's still Allah. He's still giving. As we started off the program, the Prophet ﷺ made dua for one of the two Omars. What a blessing. So I just want to say that. I've never had the privilege of meeting you. I heard a lot about you, but thank you. We take one more question. It'll be for him.
Before we do, the brother here, with his.
Oh no, that's
no, my brother who made the comment again. You're right. We do need to start with the Quran, and never everything we do should be focused around the Quran, because that's the only way that we're going to raise in the ranks in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So absolutely, you're absolutely correct.
The sister.
Assalamu alaikum.
Why, sir?
My question is like for Samir and Brother Malik, how you guys used to have the community when Safi didn't move from here. How many youth kids you guys have at that time? By the time they graduate high school, is like the corona come, like Brother Malik say, everybody is closed. But after that, you didn't bring them back. Not only converted is leaving the masjid, but where the youths you guys organize and come to like young men now, what program like Friday night you guys have for them? Where they have to go, this kid, where we are is like, in a community for young men in a college, what program you guys did for them? You guys raise this kid from young, and they don't have nothing to do in here now. How you guys gonna attract them back in here? That's my question. Thank you.
I'll go second.
So I think one of the big things you said was Corona messed up a lot of things for a lot of communities. And this was like, we've had conversations with youth directors regionally, and it's the same issue. But alhamdulillah, like this year, I think you're starting to see it change. I mean, alhamdulillah, once you start getting momentum, things change. Like over the summer, we had a leadership program where we had 50 teens for 3 months coming into the masjid, participating, wanting to be here. Alhamdulillah. You're also having another leadership program going on for college students and young adults. I think the biggest thing is having that momentum, because what you had before, you had a lot of high school students that were coming through. By the time Corona was done, they're adults and they were disconnected. And then you have a new generation that has new needs. that needed to be focused on. So I think this year, alhamdulillah, we're starting to get back into it, and it's a matter of momentum and starting to continue to do things like we've been doing and starting to continue to do the programs that we've been doing. And alhamdulillah, it's starting to, like, you're starting to see the fruits of that. With the progress that we've been making. 901 Ummah, for example, too, is going through, the people that grew up through 901 Ummah, alhamdulillah, now starting to lead the organization. You're talking about me and Safi. Now there's a new batch of people that are taking 901 Ummah forward. So it's going to take time, but it is going to be taking a lot of effort and like community effort as well. So, you know, doing different programs to attract people back into the masjid, and then also kind of focusing to see what are the new needs for this new generation of kids, because it's not going to be the same needs that they needed 5 years ago, 10 years ago. There's a new batch of challenges that are coming about. So for us to start focusing and, you know, seeing what are those new challenges that they're going through post-COVID, and then making sure that we have the programs that kind of surround that. And alhamdulillah, we have a lot of people in the community that are now starting to come forth and wanting to be involved in these different youth committees, both at the masajid, different organizations, inshallah. So I think, like, you'll see it start to change. If you didn't know about some of these programs that are already happening, they're kind of building that momentum back up and getting people back into the masjid, inshallah. And I'll give it to Brother Malik.
So, thank you for that. Thank you for that pressure. I think that's one thing. I think COVID, we all, even individually, we all had to wrestle with ourselves during COVID about what are we going to do. One of the things, last week I said we had 50 young men out at Real Foot, young men, just for young men, talking to them about being young men, and leading and getting away from all the distractions. So we're still, you know, doing programs and just getting started. And what I would like to see, what we did last week was more of a collaborative thing. I'm a convert. A lot of the fathers have been Muslim for who knows how long, centuries in their family. And the other brother who was with me, Brother Omar, was raised Muslim. So now we want to start doing more collaborative things together where people bring their skills together and their experiences together. So for me, Amin's been on the shelf. We've been dormant because I was focusing on Midtown. So as co-founder of Midtown, that's where all the energy went. Now, Midtown's stable, so we'll focus on converts again and young people who went wayward. One of the focuses of Amin is converts, but also young people who've left the community who want to come back. Who coming back to the masjid is a long step if you've went away from it. Now, we can't leave them out there. We have to focus, but that has to be focused. We can't be Walmart, right? So that's where we're just trying to get it together. And as he said, as Ali Rani Anhu said, your problems won't be your kids' problems. Every generation will have their own problems. Now we got another generation coming along who have, now you can be a girl. If you're a young man, like you literally can walk around calling yourself a girl. That wasn't an issue when you were younger. So I teach young Muslim activist classes, and they wrestle with that. Pronouns. You don't have to talk about pronouns before. So we have to kind of strategize on what's the best way to talk to them about it. At its core, the best way to talk to anybody is that you care about them. And as I started the program, you look at them like the Prophet ﷺ looked at them. That was the theme of our retreat last week, is just facing a person, looking at them. We got to go back to basics with people. And in that, I know we're closing. One of the things I wanted to talk about was, so 901, we have 901, and our brothers here doing what's going on at Massey Rahman, alhamdulillah. Young men, young women, there's basketball league for young men and young women that it's camaraderie. It's not just a game, it's camaraderie. So Amin focuses on converts. It focuses on young people who want to come back to the faith. We are blessed to have organizations that are focused on individual problems. Instead of putting all the burden on MIC or Salam or Midtown or Massey Rahman, solve all these problems. We just have to recognize these organizations and say, this is your strength zone, and we're going to support this organization that's handling this problem. And inshallah, with Allah's tawfiq, we can put a dent in some of these problems. I'll say, in closing, coming out of COVID, one of the beautiful things about COVID, you actually miss people. And maybe that's one of the blessings of it, is that maybe we took each other for granted. Maybe I just assumed I would see you at Isha. Now we got to get back. Now this is beautiful. You got good numbers here again. So inshallah, it'll come for young people. The programs will come. Inshallah, the programs will come, and they'll be better than they were before, because we have more time to think and more time to focus on our own shortcomings before we go out and talk to people. So I would say support the organizations that are up here and what they do, even if it's not you, even if you're not a convert. Because I would say to all of you who've been raised Muslim, there was someone in your lineage, may have been centuries ago, who was just like me, who was just like him. They were the first person to take Shahada. Do you ever think about that person? What they went through? Who helped them? Were they kicked out of the village? Were they cast out of their own families? When you see a convert, you think of that. If you're from Syria, if you're from Pakistan, there was somebody in your family who took Shahada. And they put up with whatever they put up with so that La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah could get to you. So when you see us, think about that person. Make dua for that person when you see us. Make dua for us that our lineage can look like you. I would love for my lineage to forget who I am and just make dua for the person who took Shahada in our family. That Islam is so entrenched in my family, they say, we've always been Muslim. Like your kids tell me when I ask them, man, who's the first person who took Shahada in your family? They say, I don't know. We've always just been Muslim. There was somebody like me, like him. And that's why we have an organization that supports converts. We're not asking the Massey to do it. Converts need to do that. So make dua for us. Make dua for this brother here. And Massey's blessed to have this young man here. Blessed to have young men like him in the community. Make dua for this brother. Make dua for his mom. Thank her for producing a young man like this. Make dua for Masjid Rahman. Make dua for Midtown. Make dua for MIC, for El Noor, for Salam, Muslimin. Make dua for the masjid. Make dua for the organizations. Inshallah, thank you for coming out. Thank you for coming to Isha.
No, Jazakallah khair. I want to thank Brother Malik and Brother AW again for being here and doing this program here, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. I think everybody learned a lot. It was very beneficial. So Jazakallah khair again. And inshallah, if anybody had any other questions afterwards, we're sorry if we weren't able to get to it. Maybe Brother Malik can answer like one-on-ones afterwards, inshallah. But we can go ahead and pray Isha.